All right, we can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Brent Hammetner. I'm the Director of Marketing at Upswing Student Success and Retention. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome everyone to our second annual HBCU Best Practices for Student Success webinar. We kicked this off last year with panelists from Winston-Salem State University and North Carolina Central University speaking about the challenges of student success and methods they use for increasing student engagement. There was a lot of great feedback, so we decided to host it again this year. And I think the timing for a conversation on HBCU student success is great. You know, just a couple weeks ago, UNCF delivered the inaugural State of HBCUs address in Washington. During that address, it was interesting to hear that HBCUs enroll 10% of all African American students and graduate 17% of all African American students, while making up 3% of the college landscape. And as you know, many of us may know, an important element in the persistence and graduation of these HBCU students is student success. So the conversation today will center around how 3 institutions are tackling this, and hopefully those listening will be able to pick up a few ideas they might be able to incorporate into their college's workflows. Now, before introducing the panelists, I do have a couple housekeeping items I wanted to cover. First, today's webinar is being recorded, and it will be sent out afterwards for everyone's review. And secondly, at any point during today's conversation, we would like to invite our attendees to submit their questions and comments in the bottom. And let me go ahead and actually showcase it here so y'all can see it. If you in the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A button. Just go ahead and click on that. There's an arrow pointing to it. Hopefully there's an arrow pointing to it on your screen. You know, simply click it, type your question. You can send it anonymously if you'd like, and we'll either incorporate it in real time, or we'll just wait until the Q&A portion of the webinar after the discussion. Today's webinar is scheduled for an hour. The plan is to have 45 minutes of conversation and then 15 minutes afterwards of a Q&A session. And then finally, last year we did experience a little bit of an echo. So let me go ahead, and I wanted to remind the panelists right now to mute their microphones until it's their turn to speak. And speaking of the panelists, we have 4 wonderful panelists with us today. The first panelist is Cynthia Joel. Cynthia is the, let me go ahead and share that. Cynthia is the University Services Manager in the University College and Lifelong Learning, UCAL, at Winston-Salem State University. She joined Winston-Salem State University in 2002 and has worked in the College of Arts and Sciences, the Registrar's Office, and Financial Aid. Her goal is to enhance the student academic experience, and she does this through workshops, co-curricular activities, and mentoring, and also implements programs that promote achievement and success as well as increase student engagement. So welcome, Cynthia. Our next panelist is Kim Pfifer-McGhee. With 20 years of experience in higher education, Kim serves as the Director for the Division of Extended Studies at North Carolina Central University. In this capacity, she serves, she supervises, directs, and facilitates the planning, development, and administration of e-learning, continuing education, and summer programs. She graduated from Norfolk State University with a bachelor's in mass communication, concentrating on television production, as well as a master's degree in organizational communication from Bowie State University. Under Kim's leadership, NCCU has grown its online enrollment by 6.5% in the last 3 years, increased the number of fully online degree programs and courses, and institutionalized the use of the Quality Matters rubric for higher education, and launched the NCCU online brand and platform to support student enrollment and retention in online degree programs at the institution. So welcome, Kim. And then our next panelist is Dr. Jo Beth Harris. Dr. Jo Beth Harris is a former high school principal and director of a virtual online high school. She joined Texas Southern University as an English professor and now serves as the instructional technology specialist for the new TSU online department. She provides first-level troubleshooting, instructional, and technical support for training students, faculty, and staff. Actually, just behind the slides here, we have Kim, and then we have Dr. Beth Harris. All right, let me do it. And then our final presenter or panelist is Melvin Hines. Melvin Hines is the co-founder and CEO of Upswing. Melvin created Upswing 6 years ago for attending Duke University Law School and Business School, and previously served as an adjunct law professor at North Carolina Central University. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I wanted to start with Cynthia. Cynthia, part of ensuring that a program or initiative can be successful typically requires a culture that is receptive, to that plan or strategy. I was hoping you could describe WSSU's culture as it relates to student success, and share how it's changed since you've been there.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon. Well, at Winston-Salem State University, we have a culture of inclusiveness and nurturing. Each of us understands that all of our retention efforts have to be what I call the 4 C's: campus-wide, comprehensive, collaborative, and coordinated. So we offer our students a first-year experience program that will help them become acclimated to college and help them interpret college jargon. We also help them get involved and make the most of their college experiences. This initiative is huge, and it includes the entire campus community, and that is including the chancellor. So the culture has evolved over the years to ensure that each of us are intentional in our efforts and strategically aligned with the student learning outcomes in our efforts for their success.
Interesting. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to actually hear, could you speak a little bit more about that first year experience program? I know that that's, a large part of the student success efforts that I've heard from different colleges have somewhat of a similar program to that first year experience. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Right. The first year experience is a year long. They have, in the fall semester, they incorporate a social justice theme. And last year we had 6 different themes: sustainability, educational equity, health initiatives. And so there are 6 of them. And so all of the students are divided among those social justice tenets, and they have to create a project around their tenet. And also they talk about, they get to go to activities on the campus. They have to integrate themselves into the community. And the second year focuses on their writing. And that focus is handled by our writing faculty who work in our building with us over here, because writing is a very pivotal initiative we have going right now, helping our students become strong critical thinkers and readers and writers. And so they're focusing in on that writing piece at the first year, during the first year they get here. And there are other components to it that I don't have off the top of my head, but those are the most critical pieces that I remember when I was working with it last year.
Gotcha. Understood. Yeah. And I'd love to hear from Dr. Beth Harris, in your experience, what has, the culture been like at Texas Southern with regards to student success, and does it, how does it compare to, the culture that Cynthia just described?
Well, I'm glad you asked, and thank you so very much. I'm very happy to be a part of this wonderful conversation. We have a very, very similar aspect here at Texas Southern University. We start with our students, though, in the summertime. So what we do is we go and we get our incoming freshmen, the ones who have applied for Texas Southern University, and they are enrolled in what's called the Summer of Success. And in the Summer of Success, we take those students and we give them like an early start. And in that, these students come in, they live on campus, and they take courses to help to strengthen and develop their skills in math, in English, and in writing and in science. And they get an opportunity to, understand our culture here at Texas Southern, which is a culture of success. We are very, very success oriented towards our students. We are very individualized in our help with them. They're given different types of tests to find out what challenges or what their needs are in terms of a needs assessment. And then from there, the students are then they then progress to small classes where they're getting individualized help. I myself was a professor there in the summertime also, so I have firsthand knowledge, and it's a very, very successful program. Then we follow up and we track, and we after they become freshmen in the fall, we also take those same students, we give them continuous opportunities for growth. We track their progress, and we also have what are called freshman seminars, which every freshman on our campus must engage in. In the freshman seminars, they're then introduced to their advisors. They each freshman has an advisor, and that advisor follows them throughout their college career and their college experience. All right, and then that's to give them additional support, additional help, because, it's scary. You're coming in from the high school and you come into a wholly different world, and they really do enjoy that aspect. We've received numerous praise and positive feedback from the students and from their parents also. So we really do pride ourselves in the development of that program. It's called the Summer of Success, SOS, and it helps to make sure that our freshman students remain with us, stay with us at Texas Southern University, and then they're thriving and moving on to graduation from Texas Southern University.
Perfect. Yeah, it's definitely the end goal. Kim, I'd be interested to hear, from you about how that, that particular culture of student success at Texas Southern, how it relates to North Carolina Central, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that. I will definitely echo what my colleagues have discussed in terms of the culture being student success, as well as inclusive. So here at North Carolina Central University, we are truly student-centered and focused. There have been intentional efforts to ensure student success at the freshman and sophomore level. And about a year and a half ago, we realized we spent a lot of time and focus on that population. And then data started to show us that some of our juniors, so close to finishing, but at that junior year, were starting to need some attention. So now we also have an intentional effort to make sure we have programs in place to service our students at the junior level as well. We have a program, much like Dr. Harris mentioned, where we bring in incoming freshmen in the summer, and it's called our Aspiring Eagles program. And they come in and they enroll in those basic general education courses. They get adapted to the university. They live on campus. So by the time the fall hits, they don't really feel like true freshmen, and they're ready to hit the ground running. The one thing that we have realized that we are now starting to work on is our online population. That population is growing by leaps and bounds, and what we're realizing is very different, obviously, from servicing your traditional freshmen, sophomore, juniors. So we're dealing with a lot of non-traditional, and I realize that non-traditional title kind of expands across a wide variety of populations, but we're trying to figure out the best ways to make sure that that population is successful. So taking that working adult that has come back to us, we have a large number of what we call partway home students who have achieved some credit but no college degree, and we're trying to help them connect that last mile and get that degree. But they're working, they're parents, they have life responsibilities going on. So what's the best way to make sure we can provide the same type of services to meet their needs to ensure that they are successful in an online environment without having to step foot on our campus?
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. What I found really interesting too is that, while you do have the sort of the freshmen and the sophomores, or you did a year and a half ago and kind of switched to, not really switched, but reallocated some time into the juniors. I found that pretty interesting. And I was curious, Cynthia, I know that you had mentioned that y'all have the first year experience program. And I was wondering if, there is a similar, I guess, program set up at Winston-Salem where it does, focus on some of the juniors as well.
Thank you, Brent. It does. And I failed to mention all of the aspects of it, but as my colleagues have said, ours is pretty much similar to what you're doing, except we don't, in the summer, we have what we call the Ramdition Week. We do all of those things that you talk about with meeting the advisors, and they hear all of the different departments, the initiatives that are happening in the departments. They learn about technology and how to navigate the campus and all those things. But yes, that first year initiative is huge. And as a matter of fact, they are revamping it. They're calling it reimagining the first year experience. And so it is going to now include many other facets that I'm not even aware of. But yes, we find that, as Kim was saying, we focus on the freshmen, and the data will show that we're losing those partway home people. And so now we have even the FYE, we have a TYE, that's the transfer year experience, and then we have a sophomore year experience. And so all of these, because of the FYE program, has what we call, got everybody aware now that all of our students need support and encouragement, and our focus needs to be on them. So you're right. We're all doing the same thing, and I'm hoping we'll all be successful.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to turn it over to Melvin, working, created Upswing 6 years ago. And I'm sure you've heard, different stories from, the various institutions that Upswing's partnered with. I was curious to know, from your perspective, how, this student success culture with the HBCUs, how that might compare to, some of the other partners that Upswing has that you've heard.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good question. I think that there's a couple of really key aspects that I've tended to notice with our HBCU partners in particular. The first is that integration and the importance with integrating into that first year experience, which several people have mentioned already. I think that when we take a look at, for example, the first year writing experience, that's something that, and I know that's one of the things that you all mentioned that you're doing at Winston-Salem State. That's something that we've seen to be a really big component. Some of the statistics that we've shown is that if we can get students over the hump when it comes to specifically writing classes, what we found is that ends up kind of giving them a little bit more of the motivation to feel that they can, move forward and achieve and ultimately succeed. In particular, we've seen that in comparison to some of our other classes where writing seems to almost make students feel like it's a referendum on themselves. And so if they tend to make a bad grade on a writing essay, they tend to feel a lot worse about their self-esteem. And so if we can find ways to encourage them early on in the process, that's how we see those students start to succeed more. And those are some of the things that we've certainly seen with a lot of our HBCU partners. The second thing that was mentioned that I thought was pretty interesting was, how do we take some of those things that are happening on campus in a very real and effective way and make them just as effective for the online student populations. Creating the experiences so that they know who their advisors are, so that they know where they can go to get supplemental help and support. That's been a bit of a chasm, a bit of a gap that we've seen, across all of our campuses, and really, something that we see schools really trying to focus on, trying to bridge that gap there with. One of the really interesting things that we've noted, I don't know if you guys have seen this as well, is that when it comes to the online students, it seems that very rarely do they actually reach out and say, hey, I need help with this, or I'm struggling with, XYZ. Instead, it tends to be that they reach a breaking point or frustration point, and they just decide, school's not for me in general. And so what it ends up meaning, or at least what we've seen, is that we have to find ways to be more proactive, check-ins, things that we're doing with nudging and things of that nature, to try and help ensure that the second the students are feeling the smallest piece of friction, especially those that are, as some of you guys have mentioned, are partway home, where they're having to deal with, family issues and working issues at the same time. If we can find ways to really nudge them and make sure that they're on the right pathway, that gives the greatest opportunity to get them to not only persist, but ultimately graduate and succeed.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. And that actually, I think, is a good segue into, the second portion of this, the webinar that I wanted to talk about, the main question, which is, that engagement aspect. And you talked about it with the nudging, and then also connecting better with some of those students that are facing some of those challenges. So what I'd, like to hear from Cynthia is perhaps, some of the, and you touched on them a little bit, but perhaps speaking a little bit more about some of the different ways that WSSU engages some of the students. And then also, how this has evolved, again, since you've been there.
Okay, sure. What we've done recently, they have organized, we're going through sort of a university reorganization. And so student engagement and development is a new division we've added to bridge academic affairs and student affairs, so we can better serve our students. And through this, we offer, which we have been for the past 5 years, we have, the building I'm in is sort of a one-stop shop, where it includes IT support, career services, international programs, tutoring, academic advising. We have a restaurant in here. We have academic enhancement program, the program that serves our athletic the athletic community for students with a GPA of less than 2.0. That program has been so successful that it has been expanded to include all of the populations of our students with a GPA less than 2 to 2.3. So they're taking that model and putting, and placing it on a wide population, so we can achieve the same results, good results that program did for the athletes. We have a male mentoring program. We also have a TRIO for our first generation students. And the students also have access to what we call RAMPath, but it is Degree Works, to help them monitor their academic progress so they can be proactive in managing their own success. We also have an early alert system we use to do all of our tracking. We have what we call a is EAB Navigate. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that program, but it used to be Grades First. And so we use that early alert system. We track all of their card swipes wherever they are on this campus, so we can use what they call preventive, preventive analytics, with the goal of intervening before their situation becomes too critical. So we are part of 8 or 9, they call care units. We have, every unit on the campus that the students are in contact with are part of the care units. Right now, all of the units aren't incorporated into the software yet, but each year they bring in, as the technology gets better, they bring in different units. So we won't have to go all over the place looking for information about a student. We can pull up that student and find everything that student has done on this campus. It's like a student's DNA, if you will. And we also, of course, we've incorporated Upswing, which has been a tremendous asset to us over these past 2 years. We also have extended hours for tutoring, and we tutor in the residence hall. So we are not waiting for them to come to us. We are going to them, and we're intrusive, intentional, all those buzzwords we're all using now, and we want them to know that we want them to succeed, and we know that things do happen, life happens, but what we can take care of, we'll take care of it, before it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess, kind of homing in on the aspect of non-traditional students, we actually received a question from our audience. It's directed at Kim. Kim, the question is, you mentioned addressing the non-traditional students and growing your online class focus. Do you have a separate emphasis or advising indoctrination for veteran non-traditional students? And are you handling veteran student PLA for military occupational specialties differently than you do a non-veteran student?
Yes, thank you for that question. That is a population that is also growing with us. And so the university has invested in a new veteran center. And I know we just got new leadership in that area. So we have been talking and working closely with them, because it is our goal to have programs and services specifically for those students. We think that is very important to make sure we reach that population. So we currently don't have anything in place other than we have that center. And once they come into us, we make sure that that is their first stop. So they'll get advising, but after that, we put them in touch with a contact person in the Veterans Center office. But as we're talking and as we've just updated our strategic plan, that population is a big part of that, to see how we can have definitely more focused types of services and programs to meet the needs of our veterans and their spouses as well.
Gotcha. Understood. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump over to Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, I know Cynthia spoke a little bit earlier about the engagement aspect that they're currently working on at WSSU. I was curious to know from your perspective, how that compares to what y'all are seeing at Texas Southern.
Well, I'm glad you asked that same question. And also, too, just to follow up on what Kim had said, mm-hmm. with the other question, we also have a very large presence of veterans here at Texas Southern University. And we also have a special initiative that we started with our new president, Dr. Lane, going in and actually welcoming veterans. We have a specialized program for the veterans, and we have an institute that we call the T Veterans Institute. Everything's, as you know, we're Tiger, so everything's T this and T that. But anyway, we have a special a special area for our veterans, and also too, along with welcoming them, we have special incentives for them in terms of funding, because we know that many of them are coming, or this will be their second career. They're starting new careers, and we can assist them in terms of help with scholarships and grants for our veterans. Moving right along and answering your question also, Brent, yes. Within Texas Southern, remember I was telling you about the advisors? Well, the advisors, as I said, move along with the students as they progress towards graduation. So they're with them during their not only in their throughout their freshman year, but also in their sophomore year, junior year, and definitely in their senior year. And we have a specialized program to whereas they have their degree plan, and it's called the T-Claw program. Of course, with the tiger T-Claw. And so with the T-Claw program, it's a computerized program that actually, again, tracks and maintains and checks the progress of the students every semester, at the beginning of the semester, mid-semester, and at the end of the semester, to find out whether or not they are going to stay with us, because retention is very important with us. We are very big with individualization of our students, because we want them to know that we care about our students, and that we care about their academic and social success. We're very success driven with our students. So that's why we want them to know that, we're individualized, we personalize our experience with you. And so therefore the students feel at home and they want to engage with us. And that's what we want, because we know that if we engage with you and work with you, then that will lead to academic success and eventually graduation. So that's our ultimate goal. So yes, we have several programs that help to foster that. Also too, we have, I was going to say, tutoring programs. We definitely love Upswing. That's what's called T-tutoring. All right, so within the T-tutoring program, we definitely have a large presence. We're growing our department, which is my department, which is TSU Online. We use Upswing. They love it. I mean, your program is just excellent with the terms of if you want to even talk to someone, you can. So we definitely track them. We help them with their challenges in terms of if they're having problems online with the online classes or face-to-face classes. So Upswing will work in both ways. So that's what we do. We work with our students. We individualize their instruction and help them to become successful graduates of Texas Southern.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And, it sounds like, and as you mentioned, there are many programs that you'll have in place that lead to this persistence and to the graduation, which brings me, to the next, I guess, segment of this, which is I'd love to hear some of the solutions that you've had in place. And kind of, I guess, more along the lines, talk to the impact that some of the programs that y'all have in place and what kind of impact are y'all seeing from those programs and initiatives. So, I guess I can go ahead and start with, we can start with Cynthia. I'd love to hear, some of the impacts that you're seeing from, you mentioned the first-year experience, and then there's the PYE, as well as the reimagining experience that you mentioned as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the impacts that you're seeing from the initiatives.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Brent. Well, as Dr. Jo Beth and Kim have both mentioned that data, we track the data. We're a data-driven institution. So everything we do, we have to be accountable for what we're doing towards those student learning outcomes. So the data right now is promising and we are headed in the right direction. However, we still have more work to do, which is why every year we keep reimagining something and things are restructured or reorganized. So that tells us we've not yet got it, not totally. But I would also recommend that to HBCUs, the leadership, that we continue to develop strategies and for communicating that strategic vision, because everything is linked to a student learning outcome, whether they call it that or not. Because if the students aren't learning, which is our ultimate goal, for them to learn and to go out and get their degree and become gainfully employed, we have to be sure that everybody on the campus that is a stakeholder is buying in to that vision, because it takes every unit on the campus to work together, because if we're not working together in the same direction, something's wrong. So collecting data, analyzing that data to make it significant so you can implement the right strategies every time you reimagine something. So I think data is very important, and communicating that buy-in from everyone, because if you are not a part of the solution, you're definitely a part of the problem.
Mhm.
And that's how that's our motto. That's how we try to move forward in that, with that mindset.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And Kim, I'd love to hear from you. It sounds like communication is a big aspect at WSSU, in communicating that strategic vision, and making sure there's a lot of buy-in. Is that something similar that you see at NCCU, or are there other impacts that you've seen as well from some of the initiatives that you've done thus far?
Definitely. Our chancellor is really big on making sure we communicate our strategic vision and that we are holding true to what we have put in our plan. But I will say one of our, obviously, Upswing is one of the solutions that we started with, and it has truly been beneficial to our online population. We started out having faculty and some advisors and some tutors set up some opportunities for students to meet with them virtually, to discuss and to talk about any help that they may need. And that didn't always seem to match. Obviously, our tutors may have something to do. They may not be available at 9 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. So we needed a solution where students would feel like they had the freedom to tailor that experience and get what they needed when they needed. And that's where Upswing has come in and kind of filled that gap for us. We have found that our students have tutors that they have pretty much gravitated to. And so they're almost like friends. If I go out in the system, I see a few of them that's like I think they have standing weekly appointments. So I'm like, okay, this seems like a friendship, or what's going on here? But they're comfortable with those tutors, and they're comfortable with being able to get what they need when they need it, and that flexibility. So that solution has definitely just really impacted the online community, so much so that for the first time, instead of me pushing out reminders and information through Constant Contact to utilize Upswing, I ran out of hours before my time this semester. So, we had to get additional hours to service the population through the end of this semester. And so for me, that's a good problem to have. And I just think the more solutions that we can put in place, as we have all talked about today, in trying to reach that online population, I think the better off we will be. Some of them don't want to come to us, like you mentioned, Brent, and say, hey, or Melvin, I'm sorry, then say, hey, this is what I need. But once we push something out or propose an idea or say, hey, we have this platform available, they're jumping on it and starting to take advantage of it. And I think part of that also is word of mouth. They do communicate in their in classrooms. They form groups and chats, and they, share with each other that, hey, you should try Upswing or you should try this. So I just think the more either technology, typically it's a technology platform, but the more things that we can put in place, make them fully integrated, single sign-on, anything that makes it easy so it's just a click, one or two clicks, and they have access to the service are the types of solutions that we see the largest impact.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for sharing and keeping up with that theme of the online students. I wanted to move over to Melvin. Melvin, you had mentioned that, a big part of what Upswing, tries to do is take some of those experiences that, that on-campus students are receiving and allow the online students to experience, have a similar experience. Could you speak a little bit on some of the results or the impact that you've seen, at least working with Upswing in your time with Upswing?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I think that we've been pretty proud of, and I certainly appreciate some of the accolades and kudos from everyone on the panel. I think one of the things we've been really proud of is some of the work that we've been able to do for the online student populations and the non-traditional student populations. In particular, what we've seen is that as we continue to engage students, and if we can get them to engage, our goal internally is usually to try and increase engagement by getting them to at least do something through the platform about 3 times over the course of a semester. Mm-hmm. If we can achieve that number, what we've seen is that their likelihood of staying put, of having greater resilience to barriers tends to increase. And that number has actually been between 10 and 15%, depending on which population that you're looking at. What's really been interesting and impactful and something that has been heartening to me personally is that we've seen the greatest persistence numbers and greatest improvement numbers, particularly among our Black and Brown students. We've actually started to conduct focus groups to find out, what is it that's making it that's so much more impactful for them than some of our other students, because it's been really interesting and exciting to see some of those numbers come about. Even though we're excited about that, there's still a long way to go. I think that going back to one of the things that Kim mentioned earlier, it's all about how can we find a way to start that conversation the very first time. Do we use the summer, experiences to try and get students to know about all the resources on campus on the first day? Do we do things like creating the veterans programs for, for veterans who are coming in their first year? How do we make sure that those first time students have that same impact? One of the things that we've really tried to do is implement nudging techniques with things like, we have a tool called Anna that works through SMS to try and encourage students to engage the very first time around, so that it becomes easier and easier for them to have those conversations and have those communications. And I know that someone mentioned earlier that they've actually structured, I think it was, it's what you guys are doing at Texas Southern, structured the advisors to follow the student.
Yes.
And that's a really interesting initiative. And I'd actually be interested to hear, alongside that, I know I'm taking over Brandon a little bit here, but one of the things that I'd be interested to hear with that is that, you're usually kind of playing the game of, do you focus on the student or do you focus on the year, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And by focusing on the student, do you find that it's also been difficult to make sure that the people have that same sort of specialized information about the year of the student as well? Or has that not really been an
aspect of it? That's a very good question. And I'd like to, expound on it a little bit. The Summer of Success program began about 2 years ago. And right now, we're taking data so we can follow up to see the impact of it. So far, it's been very, very positive. In terms of the advisors following the students, it's been very, very advantageous, and the students love it because, you know, they have that bond that they form with that particular advisor. In terms of their major and specifics, then of course they have a secondary person, the person who is their advisor of their particular field of study. So they really have two advisors. And so, you know, we're doing a longitudinal study to find out the effects of it. We just have some data recently that shows that they enjoy it, they love it. It also lets them know, again, we want to individualize your instruction here at Texas Southern. We want to make sure that it's a positive thing because we want the path to graduation to become yours. That's our ultimate goal for our students. Individualized instruction, knowing that we care and pushing you towards graduation. And as my other colleagues were speaking earlier in terms of the online environment, we definitely love Upswing. It's been vital. It's been a wonderful, wonderful tool that the students love. They do think of the tutors as their friends, and you know, they have the 24-hour access to them, and it's just vital to their academic success. So we really do love it and utilize it, and just excellent resource.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so we're a little bit over time, but what I wanted to do now was open it up for our Q&A session. We've had a couple questions come in earlier, but right now, if there's any questions that anybody in the audience has, please feel free to ask it through the chat. Again, there is that bar at the bottom of your page that says Q&A. Just click on that and you can submit a question anonymously with your name. It's up to you. But feel free to go ahead and do that now.